Too many open windows. Okay.
Yeah, that's easy to do. Every once in a while, I just got to close everything. I do it on my phone too. I just shut everything down.
I actually do it I have to do it every day. I have so much stuff.
Yeah.
And it creates so many conflicts and problems that I just get in the habit is in the morning, turn everything off, turn it back on again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about how in the old days, when you had your computer at work, you went home, you shut down, and then in the morning you powered back up. So it automatically sort of, was that way. But now with the phone, you just leave it on and on and on, and stuff somehow mysteriously adds up or does something, and sometimes stuff stops working.
Yeah. And even with the computer, the sleep function is kind of magical, right? You close it and then you open it up again, everything starts, but you run into this whole.
Well, it's magical and it's mystical.
It's all very odd.
Yeah.
All right. So your trips were good. You did twice, right? Since the last time we talked.
Yeah. I've been out on the boat a fair amount. I'm leaving Friday, going out for a few days. I'm going out solo on Friday, so that'll be good. Nice. And then for the month of August, we'll be there like 3 weeks solid. We got various different family members coming and going and et cetera. So yeah, it'll be great.
Good.
Very nice.
Everybody's doing okay?
Yeah.
All the kids? The grandkids?
Everybody's good. No one's sick. Everyone's healthy. COVID sort of seems to be coming and going and ebbing and flowing. It's like the tide now, sort of like decreases and then sort of comes back a little bit, and then it decreases and it comes back a little bit.
But it's always there.
But it's always there. Yeah, that's fine. I'm vaccinated and double boosted, so I got all the shots that I can get. And so far, knock on wood, I haven't gotten it as far as I know. Everyone else in the family's had it, but I have somehow dodged that bullet. So yeah.
And everybody's managing in the heat okay? All right, still. Well, you look like you're bundled up a little bit this morning. Is it cool down there?
It is. It's cool this morning. It's in the 70s. So yeah, I'm wearing just a golf shirt. So, but yeah, everything's good. Everything's good. Gas prices are dropping.
What is it these days?
It's in the mid 4s now, down to 4.49, 4.39, something like that. So the high around here was just around $5. So it's dropped down, and so that's all right. That's still that whole thing is unclear. What's going to happen, other than over the long term everything's going to go up, and the car industry is still in a tizzy because of part shortages, etc. And
the oil companies will still make lots of money. That's another given, right? They're going to make their profit no matter what.
Yep. But I think part of here's part. I think of a contribution to all of these wild price swings is all the speculation, right? The price is actually controlled by futures, right, markets.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with how much the gas in that pump costs to extract. Zero.
That's right. That's right. It all has to do with futures markets. And you can imagine that if you have a tanker full of oil and prices are going up, you're going to let that tanker sit on anchor. I mean, I would.
Yeah.
Right. And then when prices start falling, you're going to want to pump it out.
Yeah.
So, and it's all driven by futures markets. And I think the whole notion of future markets is fundamentally a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I don't know enough about economics, but it doesn't seem to me that there's any sort of real upside to a futures market.
No, it's not real supply and demand. It's a false signal, right? And we talk about, markets work when the information is accurate and transparent, and this is neither.
That's right.
And is there any other product that you can think of that's priced almost solely on futures rather than actual supply and demand?
Oh, well, a lot of the farmer stuff, a lot of grains. So a lot of farmers
Yeah.
do these contracts, right? So, I mean, that's how it started, was it's Chicago, whatever it
Yeah,
was called,
mercantile
mercantile.
exchange.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I think that's its foundation. And a lot of it was for farmers could lock in a price for their corn, or they could lock in a price for their soybeans. And then they knew they were okay. Um, and some would and some wouldn't. But now I think all of these things are controlled by, a small handful of folks.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because with that though, it's not the wild fluctuation. It's like, okay, well, it's fluctuating, but it's like, okay, I know that I'm gonna sell you this bushel of corn for $2.17. And all right, it doesn't have anything to do with the price, but with oil, it goes up and down on the corner. You know what I mean, right? And it doesn't have
right.
anything to do with the actual contract price of the oil, I don't think, does it?
I don't think so, because it's third parties, right? Somebody's
Third
selling the oil
parties.
to somebody then
That's what
reselling
I
it, and
think.
then reselling it and reselling it. And it's all about speculating and another form of gambling.
Yeah, I think if we pulled that thread, that's what we would get to. That it actually isn't even tied to a contract. It's just purely speculation. I think, and I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on
Right.
this. But
And wheat prices you have what, 2 wheat crops a year? It's not
exactly.
it's not every day.
Continuous. Right. It's not a continuous process. This is a continuous flow, or it's
Right.
mostly continuous flow. There's the refinery level, and I think that's where a lot of it, it's there's multiple levels too, right? Because okay, it's the extraction. Okay, they extract it and there's a price there, and then they ship it, and that there's some variability there in the shipping costs. And then there's the refining, right? And that's where I think the real bottleneck, there's a whole nother layer of bottlenecks, right? And each state has its own refinery because they have special rules, right? Like New York has special rules, and they use that to artificially constrain demand or supply rather. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of weird shit going on.
There sure is. There sure is. And it's follow the money trail, and I think you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Wild.
So that's interesting.
Have you been paying attention at all to all the televised January 6 hearings, or you've just ignored that?
I've pretty much ignored it. So my number one premise is, give me one example of anything productive or concrete that has come out of any congressional hearing. There isn't any.
A lot of posturing.
Right? Give me one example of anything concrete that's come out of a congressional hearing.
Yep.
Right? And I think the mistake they made with this is it's so partisan. The committee is so partisan. Right? I mean, they call it a bipartisan committee, but it's not, because the Republicans nominated 4 people for the committee. All 4 were rejected. And then Pelosi picked the 2 Republicans that are on the committee. So I think they're hurting themselves by making it so partisan, because I think it would be a lot more effective if they did have some cross-examination, I'll call it, right? More theater, more theatrics, more circus, right? But I think the committee's findings would have more credibility to a certain segment of the population, right? There's the 20% that are going to believe whatever's said. There's the 20% that are going to ignore whatever's said. And then there's that 60% in the middle. And that's the ball that you can move. And I think they're sort of hurting themselves by not making it a little more balanced and allowing people to challenge witnesses and allowing people to do that. So
that's what was good about, I mean, I'm just old enough to remember Watergate, right? And Watergate at least came across as a truly.
Yeah, but remember, the thing that sealed Watergate was the special prosecutor. It wasn't the congressional hearings.
Congressional hearings, right?
It was the special prosecutor.
Right, that we don't have.
Right. It was Archibald Cox, right? It was Archibald Cox. Right.
Right.
And I think, look, Trump clearly did a lot of things he shouldn't have done. I think that's pretty clear. It's clear to me, right? And his goose is cooked in my eyes. That's it. He's done. He's over. He's over. And I also think that, they're clearly dragging this congressional hearing out as long as they can for political value to get it as close to the November elections as possible. Just wait, right? I mean, it's already, they're taking the month of August off, right? The next ones are going to be in September, and you wait, right? And I'm just waiting for what the huge bombshells will be that get
on October 25th or whatever.
Right. And I was thinking about this with voting. When basically when 99% of the votes were done on November 7th or whatever election day.
Right. But now they're already starting in some places, I think. Right.
So you knew when to drop the bomb on your opponent, right? It was like, 4 or 5 days before the election, right? You dropped the big.
Right. And the news cycles were slower too, right?
Right. So you did it 4 or 5 days before the election, you dropped the bomb on your opponent, and you got maximum impact. Now with voting spread out over a month or two, when do you drop the bomb?
Right. And maybe it's better. You know what I mean? Right. You can't.
Well, yeah.
So it's less because, I mean, right. There was all that in the last election or 2 elections ago, I guess, with Hillary. Right. And there was all the email stuff at the end and everything was all timed for maximum in cap. And you didn't have time to actually work through, was this true or not true? And what are the different perspectives and from both sides?
Right. Yeah. I mean, they all do that, right? That's just been standard operating procedure.
Right. Interfere with the actual people's being thoughtful and rational voters,
Right.
Which sucks.
Yeah.
But hopefully one good thing that came out, again, there's been these 2 small, and I didn't watch any of the hearings, 0, not 1 minute of it. But they did the gun safety law, Senate did, right? And they did the voting rules, right? And again, these aren't perfect pieces of legislation by any means, but it's the first time in a while that we've actually seen some sort of compromise and at least some legislation happening. And you and I were talking about this with the Supreme Court stuff, as maybe this is forcing the Congress to actually pass some laws, but I'm not hopeful in the long term. But
I mean, we've gotten to, and this is at all levels, because it happens at the state level, it's happening at the city level here too. The executive branch has now embraced the executive order, right? Which goes contrary to the whole democratic process. We're not an autocracy,
right?
Right? But now we're starting to behave like one, because all these decisions, right?
They won't. Nobody will pass a law. They can't compromise.
Right. And so the executive branch is doing all these executive orders, and they just extended the governor's executive powers here because of COVID. It's gone, man.
Right. I mean, it's there, but it's not creating an emergency.
Right.
I mean, if the hospitals fill up again, and if there's huge economic tidal wave, sure, but
there isn't any. But she extended her executive powers for another 60 days because of this 1.5% increase in COVID cases, right? And it's just, I don't know. I think that as we've talked before, the process is broken, and until we fix that, and then I think until we take the money out of the game, we won't fix it, and we won't take the money out of the game because that's the whole reason they're in the game.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, it is. So what's going on with gas prices over there? I saw that Russia decreased or increased or did something to their gas flow.
So actually don't know what gas prices are here right now. I could look it up. But for gasoline, but what Russia has been doing the last 3 weeks is, so the natural gas that flows through this Nord Stream pipeline, that's been cut off 80%. It's just, I think, at 20% now. Let's see, gas prices in NRV. Let's see, fuel prices currently here. What's today's date? Is this the right date? $1.80 in Germany per liter, and it's about parity at par now, €1 to $1. So times 4 is it's about down to about $7.50 a gallon. So that's down here too.
But natural gas will have a bigger impact, right? Because it's a lot of stuff is heated and power generation, et cetera, right?
So natural gas, that's where the squeeze. So we also buy oil from Russia, but it's a smaller chunk of the whole. And again, the pricing is the same as in the US. It's actually not related. So as far as I can tell. So natural gas, so right now it's really seasonal natural gas usage. So there's industrial usage and residential usage, and there's almost no residential usage in the summer, but lots in the winter, as a lot of people heat their houses with natural gas. But in industrial is a much bigger customer than residential. So they've cut the supply. They haven't needed to start rationing yet for companies, but the kind of the labor minister, the economic ministers have warned that they have a plan in place to start rationing natural gas this winter to companies, and that they should plan on that happening. So the prices would be high, and they also might go 2 days a week without natural gas, because they want to prioritize people being able to heat their homes.
Sure.
And the way heating works here, I think I remember in New York it was similar. They couldn't raise the rates on a monthly basis. You could only raise the rate annually. For it depend. Like my oil, when I had in Potsdam, I had an oil tank, and that was a spot price. But I think I guess it was when I lived in DC, we had natural gas, and it was like a yearly contract, and they didn't raise the price month to month. So here's the same way, and so for us, we're heated by the municipal hot water, so they burn trash, and I think there might be a little natural gas that sometimes they use just as backup in case the trash that comes in isn't, there's a disruption. So our electricity rates, they said, have already indicated they'll go up at the end of the contract, which is in October, 20%. But that's the first increase that we've had since this whole thing started. So electricity rates up 20%. Right, gasoline looks like it came back down in the last couple of weeks, like it did in the U.S. Natural gas prices will be at least 30 to 40% higher, is what they're telling people to get ready for. And everybody's being asked to keep things already, plan on temperatures colder, bundle up, fewer hot showers, things like that. That it's going to be a cold winter and a tough winter, which is interesting. And people here are like, yeah, it sucks, but okay. I mean, they would live. These are people that lived through World War. Well, their parents lived through World War II, and there's enough people still that remember that, even in the 50s and early 60s, when things were economically tough here.
Right.
So people your age didn't live through the war necessarily, but they lived through the Reconstruction.
Well, particularly in East Germany, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was up until, and it was that way exactly. It was up in that way until the 90s. In the East. Yeah. So
are you in East or West? Are you in the old East or West?
Oh, okay. Now we're almost as far west as you can get. So we're on the western edge.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty near Bonn, which was the capital of the Old West. So we're a lot closer to Bonn than we are to Berlin.
Got it.
You'd have to drive probably 3 hours due east to get to the DDR from here. 2.5 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, good.
So yeah, so that's the scoop here. So politically, people are not really satisfied with our government. They're talking about reopening. So, I think I talked about this with you before, was, we made this decision to shut down the nuclear factories after the nuclear plants after Fukushima. And the Green Party, which is now in control of and part of the controlling coalition, they built their political reputation on that. But now they're actually talking and they said, well, you know what? We got a bigger problem now. And we've created this problem of dependency on fossil fuels from Russia, and maybe taking some of these nuclear reactors out of mothballs and starting them up again on a limited basis, right, is the right way to move forward. So that's really fast. I don't know if they'll do it or not, but it's just fascinating to hear that conversation. But yeah, otherwise school is out. I still have just a shitload of grading to do, and it's a little overwhelming. But we're going to go on vacation next week up to the Baltic Sea, and work is under control. I don't complain because it's a good job, as you well know.
Yes.
But we'll see.
Yes. Cool.
Yeah, that's all I know.
All right. Shall we jump in?